All right, welcome. We are here with Adrien Blackwell, who is a celebrity healer who's been featured on many TV shows around the globe, including NBC, on Travel Channel, and Bio Channel. So some really like high profile places. She is the creatrix of the Ascended Healing and the Ascension Codes. So I'm curious to hear more about that, Adrian. And she loves to authentically help women who have given up on love in lieu of their career. She loves to help them discover true love and real pleasure. So I think this is going to be really powerful for a lot of our female listeners, because, you know, we grow up in this culture, in this society where it's like, do it yourself, women, get up and make it happen. And so we can, as women, really swing into the yang of life and reality and become these power driven, power hungry, sort of in the masculine role women, and we lose our sense of our femininity. So it sounds like that's a big piece of what you do, is bring them on home.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Well, we're so excited that you're with
Happy
us.
to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't we just launch right there? Share a little bit about who your clientele is, like who comes to you seeking your expertise.
My mirror images. That's who I help. My mirror. Isn't that true for most of us?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy because I had a relationship between 15 and 19 years old that kind of scarred me, only because I was so young and I didn't realize what I had when I had it. I didn't realize how good it was, because it wasn't a fairy tale. I was looking for something that was absolutely 100% better. You know, it was like more like Disney, because I love Disney movies. And we lived together for the whole entire time. So it was like a full-on, I experienced a relationship, right? And then it was like, after that, I avoided relationships like the plague. I'm like, I have my daughter, I'm focusing on my career, like I want more money, and I'm just gonna be the masculine.
You're gonna hold it all.
I'm gonna do all this work. Yeah.
All by myself.
All by yourself.
'Cause I'm just a strong woman like that, right?
Right.
And you also have to realize, not only am I living in a masculine world, but just the Black community, because my mother's white, my father's Black. So being raised in the Black community, the women are the stronger ones, right? And the men kind of back them up. The women are listened to. People dedicate their lives to the Black women. So on top of that, I have this whole thing where, okay, so there's a matriarchy, and I'm like, I'm that person. And my grandmother was very much like that. And I so respected how she treated her family and how they respected her, that I was like, okay, I can do this on my own. And mind you, she had 8 children.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So 8 kids who like did what she said. They listened to her, and I'm seeing her do this on her own. So there was that role model that you do this by yourself. You don't do this with a partner, you do this alone. So anyways, you know, fast forward to like 5 years ago, and I was like, I don't want to do this alone anymore. I've been doing this for a long time. What is this male energy I've been carrying? I don't like it, right?
Like, is it burnout? What did that feel like? Was it like a burnout, just your energy flatlined?
It wasn't a burnout, because I love what I do, right? But I'm starting to realize I want more help, rather than like, because I had to learn how to hire people. Right. I had to learn how to let people in to help me. So like, what's the next step of that is letting in a partner. So I was really focused on career, like a lot of my clients. I was really feeling like love let me down. Like I wasn't going to get what I wanted. And I avoided it at all costs. So that's really the women I work with. And when that changed for me, I was like, now listen, I have to go back for a second. So for 12 years, I was a celebrity psychic, which means I would help people, and they would come to me and they would ask me about love, and I hated it.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I hated it. I was like, why are you women so focused on love over here when you could be having like a career, you could be having money, right?
Right, get your value from somewhere else. Yeah.
And yet that's the women that were coming to me, and I'm like, okay, fine. Let me look at the cards. Let me do my reading. And I would just like see somebody, be like, okay, I see the soulmate coming in like 2 weeks. And sure, you know, I get the name right, I get the description right. They call me, oh my God, it happened. Oh my God. And then 2 years later, they're marrying the person. Like I actually got to follow the stories, but I wasn't invested in it. And it's so amazing to think about that, because now as a healer that's so focused on love, like you can't heal without the love component. Like when I really wanted to make money, I started to heal my heart. Money skyrocketed, right? And so I'm looking back on all these readings that I was doing that I didn't really want to do. And I was like, I learned a lot from that.
That's very interesting. Yeah. When your heart wasn't in it to do the love, because that wasn't a value for you at the time. It was just, it felt like work. It felt like, drudgery, you know, but then now it's a completely different feeling for you. Yeah.
It is. It completely changed.
Does it change everything about my life?
Does it what?
Have your readings changed?
I don't do readings anymore. That's how that changed.
That's how changed it is.
Yeah, stepping into the feminine. So the masculine is like this control, right? For me, it just feels like somebody who's in control. I know what I want to do from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. It's like a plan of action, knowing what you want the end result to be. The feminine was more playful and more energetic. And so with the readings was more along the masculine side, as I knew I had a goal to get to. I want to read you. I want to get point A, point B, and tell you what the end's going to be. When I started doing the energy work instead, it was like, just tell me what you want to create and let's put the energy out there to create it. Let's release the blocks to create that thing and let's watch the magic happen. We don't know what the end result is going to be, but you're creating what you want. So you have to put the energy behind what the end result is going to be. And that changed everything. It was more of a feminine energy. And I just started moving into that and it felt much better. And then it felt like I could start playing with the masculine and the feminine at the same time versus just being in the masculine all the time.
And how did you see your clients start to, like what happened for them? What kind of changes and shifts evolved? I mean, you were already giving stellar readings and, you know, these psychic readings. So how did it change after that?
You know, how it changes is it's fascinating to see. But like with the psychic readings, I started out as a healer. I actually was trained as a healer. I just didn't think I was a healer. So I did that for me and my family. I didn't do it professionally. But when I was doing the psychic readings, I didn't realize I was doing healing at the same time. So people would come in with a broken heart. They would come in grieving from a relationship. And all of a sudden they would get off the call and be like, you know, ever since I talked to you, I'm just not missing this person anymore. Like, breakups don't happen that fast. You don't get over it that fast. And they're like, no, after talking to you, I did. So there was already like this component to healing being done. But now it's like, now that we're dealing with the heart stuff, people that wouldn't let love in, like I was, like that, they're letting love in. They're actually allowing people to help them and support them. They're starting to feel the difference between saying, I have to do this by myself and realizing what it feels like to have somebody do something with them. That's incredible. That's an incredible feeling to have a real partner.
Oh, I love that. It sounds like you're really helping them open up their receptivity channels, like their ability to receive the gifts of life, the love of life, the wonderment of what's possible, you know, when you start to receive. So valuable, because that's one of the feminine's greatest superpowers is really that receptivity. And we're not taught it. We never learn it.
And I love the way you explain that, because my free gift to people and everybody, whenever they come to me, is called receiving with an open hand.
Perfect.
And right. And so what I have people do, so everybody watching this, what you have to do is just open your hand and then close it. Make a nice tight fist and squeeze it as hard as you can. You'll start to realize it gets kind of tingly because the blood flow gets cut off. And I'm like, if I try to put $100 bill in your hand, what happens? It just falls off. If I try to grab your hand, to hold your hand, to give you support, I can't. Because it's a fist, right? And the difference between what we're doing now and what we could be doing is simply opening the hand. And people feel the difference. Like if you do it right now and you just squeeze your hand really, really tight and you hold it there and then you open it, you feel the difference. You feel the relief. You feel how good it feels. Now, if I try to put $100 bill in your hand, you can receive it. If I try to hold your hand, I can receive it. And people, you know, it's a webinar, but I always do healing in everything that I do, because that healing is that secret to manifesting what you want. And it was interesting to hear people live saying that they had epiphanies of how they've been blocking their money, how they've been blocking their love, how they've been blocking receiving because their heart was shut down.
Well, I think that really illustrates we don't know that we're closed until we open. And then like the magnitude of like, because that fist initially doesn't want to unfold. It's like there's resistance, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but
It's
once
crunchy.
you get it open, it's like, oh, it feels so much better. And then you can really have the reflection of, wow, we don't know how closed is until we open. And that hand to fist is a really direct felt sense to just what our heart feels, you know, when it's closed compared to really open.
Such a valuable point. And that's a point that people should be writing down, you know, people who taking notes should be writing down exactly what you said, because there is no awareness of where you are until you move away from that spot. It's wild. Yeah.
And I love how you said too, you simply open your hand. You know, it's like, it's very simple. Yeah, it can feel so complicated and so complex. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how do you work with your clients who are like, yeah, I really want to open my hand, but it's complicated. It's really complicated. They have their story and everything.
There's a lot of ways that you work with people, and everybody is so specific and so different. I can work with people in groups because when people come together in groups, they have a similar reason that they need healing, right? So it makes it a lot easier. And when I do one-on-ones, it's very specialized. So let's figure out where this problem is coming from. So sometimes it's from our experiences. Our experiences when we're children, we see our mom and our dad fighting, or we see that mom doesn't have a partner, or whatever the storyline is, and we think that's our only choice is either mom or dad. Their experience. And however we witness that experience, we don't realize as children that there's more experiences in between the mom and dad experience, that there's other choices we can have. And there's billions of experiences we can have. So we can have real love, true love, fun love, serious love. We can have anything we want if we can only see that it's just an experience. It's not a program that you're going to have this for the rest of your life. It's just experience. So a lot of times we have to go in and actually clear the old experiences. Like in my, former relationship where I was just like, oh no, I don't ever want to do that again. And now that I look back on it, I was like, hell yeah, I would do that again. I loved it. Right. So it's like, it's giving you a new perception on life. It's giving you your DNA a boost. It's giving you a shift in your vision. There's so many things I can change with that. But my favorite is ancestral healing, because I think about 95% of the problems that we have are ancestral. They're just passed on because we are in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, we want to pass that on to our children so they do not die. We are trying to make sure that they live for as long as they possibly can, right? Mama bear, Papa bear, like we are passing that on. And it's just like animals. We have proven this with scientific results that we are passing this on. Our DNA holds more information than a USB can. One little piece of DNA. So we're just passing on this information. So here's where things get fascinating. You know how we were just talking about, we can't tell our hands are closed until they open. We can't tell our hearts are closed until they're open. So I was working with my own coach, even though I'm a healer and I've been doing this for 22 years. I'm telling you, you got to have your own coach. So I'm working with my coach and we're talking about relationships. I'm like, I just want to move my relationship to the next level. I don't want to have my own blocks. So I'm an avoidant type person. So we're working together and he's like, let's look at your ancestry. So this is so fascinating to me. My mother got married, got divorced, got married again to my father, and they've been married for 42 years and separated for 32.
Wow, that's quite a story.
And separated. Oh, this is just the beginning. Then I'm like, my grandmother got married and then got divorced and then got married again, and they separated in the same house. They didn't even sleep in the same bed together. And so I had to go tell my mom this after me and him discovered that this is a pattern, right? So I'm talking to my mom and she's like, oh, it happened to my grandmother too. So now we have 3 generations. Oh my God. Wow. Well, my nephew is listening to the story and he was like, wait a minute, hold on. My mom is just now getting a divorce from her husband. And I was like, what do you mean? Like what? They're still together? And he said, because I thought they had gotten divorced a long time ago, apparently not. So my sister got married, got divorced, got married again, and they were together for like 1 year during the marriage, and they've been separated for 15 years.
That's
separated
crazy.
15 years. So this is 4 generations that we can go back. No telling how far back it goes. So when I look at my story, I remember the reason I left. You guys are going to get a kick out of this. So this is interesting. My boyfriend said, if you decide you want to get married, I want to marry you. We can just go pick up the marriage certificate. I was out. I was gone. No freaking way. You're getting me hip down. It's not happening, right? And that same pattern would have happened to me. And I knew it. I didn't know it consciously what the pattern was. I just knew that I was following a pattern that I didn't want to follow. So I took off. And then it was like, that's how I changed the pattern. I didn't know what other opportunities there were until I started working with healing and seeing what other people can do, but even working with my own healer and really digging deep into that, going, okay, what is it that I really want to experience? Because now I can choose anything now that we see where the problem is and we're removing it from the ancestry in itself, from the DNA itself. Incredible. To me, that's just fascinating.
That's a really great before and after story of like the unconscious just operating, just doing the thing. And then the awakening of going, oh, wait a minute, there is a pattern interrupt possible. And I've got a key to the change.
And your DNA is so powerful that we actually don't have a choice other than to realize what's happening and then actually get healing on it so that we can make a different choice. And that always brings in the question of free will for me. It's like, how much free will do we really have? Because until we actually say, I want to heal at any cost, I don't care what it costs for me to heal, I want to do it. Do we even see the pattern in the first place to see we never had a choice because it was already in our DNA? We were going to live this out one way or another. And so that's amazing to me. I at least see one place where we have absolute choice, and that is the choice to heal.
I love that. I love that so much that you're bringing this ancestral healing, this epigenetic code shift into the conversation, because we haven't talked about this yet. And it's fascinating. And it plays into our sexuality in such an enormous way. I mean, especially if we're coming from a religious background or any of that, the guilt and the shame and all of the oppression around sexuality for women particularly, but in general, for men as well, it's eons and eons and eons back. I mean, you can't hardly go as far back as it can be traced. And so I'm just curious, there's the ancestral piece, but do you also find working with like past lives stuff is of use as well?
Past life, absolutely. But why did you have the past life experiences you had? So there's two ways I look at this when I do the clearing and the healing on this. One is what happened to you in previous lifetimes that created this, the lifetime in which you were drawn to that family for those experiences, right? There's still a pattern there that needs to be removed versus just that lifetime. I usually try to go back to the first lifetime that it ever happened. And sometimes that has taken me back like 32,000 years. I think is the furthest I've ever went back. Like that was crazy. But, you want to look at where the spirit is having its own experiences, right? That are bringing you to the lifetime to have that experience. So I'm still trying to get to like the original spirit source versus just a lifetime. So I kind of work around lifetimes in a lot of ways.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's so galactic, there's so many facets to it. It's like,
oh yeah, I've had to heal other planetary stuff sometimes, which is weird.
Yeah. So you're using this word pattern. Leah and I are very familiar with this word, but some of our audience members may not be. So describe for us patterns.
So I like to call it a karmic loop. And a karmic loop would be something that you keep experiencing over and over and over again, no matter what you do, no matter how you try to change it. You try to save money, you can't save money. You try to get into a healthy relationship and it seems like they don't exist. They're not attracted to you. I used to have women who said, I can go to any bar and pick out the only asshole in the room. And it's like, that's a pattern. When you really can pinpoint that there's a certain thing that I pinpoint every single time that I cannot get out of, you are in a karmic loop pattern. And that's what I heal. So people can actually get out of it and enjoy their lives.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I love the whole religious thing that you were just on because I was brought up a Jehovah's Witness. So I got to talk about this.
Yes. Let's go
we can
there.
talk about the sexual aspects of things, right? Right? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Bring it on.
So my family were talking about this just the other day. And I was like, it was my nephew and my daughter. And I was like, you know what Granny used to call our vagina? And you were like, what? And I said, a cat. A cat.
Oh, not
She
a
would
pussy.
never use the
cat.
word. Exactly. Right. And I was like, she's never used the word vagina. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where this whole pussy and cat came from, because it was the same thing, right? It's like, it's a kitty cat. Like, what? I don't understand that. So I remember having this conversation with my mother, because when we grew up, Jehovah's Witnesses, we had the sex talk, right? So in the Jehovah's Witness religion, I think, and like most religions, like the man, like you're supposed to be there to kind of please the man and do what the man wants. Like you have your wifely duties. Right. And it never came across as it was supposed to be fun or enjoyable. It was just kind of like something you do. And then I remember having the talk about 2 women and 2 men lying together was wrong. Like I remember like these details at like 4 years old and asking questions like, what? 2 women doing what? You know? And so this was programmed into me from a very early age that you're not really supposed to enjoy it. Like that's the bad part, you know. You have to be married. But in the Bible, I was like, marriage is you moving into the person's home, and now you change what marriage is. Does that make it legal? Does that make it right? Does that make it like, I had so many questions that just didn't make sense. So I was always interested in this whole topic. So that's why I still talk about it to this day. And so we're talking about where this whole idea of renaming your vagina comes from. But I remember asking my mother about it, and she was like, I don't know. That's just what your grandmother called it. And I was like, I can't. Like this whole ancestral thing, like we pass things on and we don't question it. And I think that's the difference between me and my family and my ancestors, is that I just question things. And then when I realize it's just a pattern that doesn't really make any sense, I'm free to get out of it at that moment. But it's how many people are experiencing this? This is not just a me thing.
Definitely not.
No,
a lot of people are experiencing that.
Especially when the messaging from parents is you just listen to your parents, just listen to your parents, just listen to your parents. And there
or your
is
teachers.
And the questioning is cut off severely, very quickly. Like you don't question, you don't question authority. You do as you're told. And I think that we are more and more probably moving out of that so much as a culture, at least from parenting styles. But sometimes I think, oh, you're just in a California bubble. And, who knows? Have we really grown that much?
I've talked to people way, back, a lot hasn't changed in certain places. But I mean, if change can take place here, it can take place anywhere. So that's the message. But yeah.
And it feels like we have more resources, more tools, more invitation to change all across the globe, really now more than ever when it comes to changing these patterns, especially around sexuality and the way you talk about it. But it takes the individual to A, have the curiosity and the desire, and then B, take the steps, right? Because once you start taking the steps, you're like, oh shit, I don't know who I am now. Because I've always been that way. My parents were that way. Everyone was that way behind me. So I don't know who I'm becoming. It can feel really scary and vulnerable. And there can be a quick, like, let me go back over there, So that's why it's so crucial and so powerful, as you were saying, Adrian, to have a guide, like to have someone outside of you who's like, that's okay. That's normal that you're feeling scared and uncertain. Like that's part of the process. Take another step, here's the next piece. And so having that guide is so crucial, especially if you're newer on the path.
100%.
I bet you have some fun miracle stories of changing patterns that you could share with us.
I have a lot of miracle stories, but the one thing that I was going to share was that I do give credit to the religion itself for why I actually ask questions, because a lot of religions tell you not to.
That's great.
This is where my smarts came in, because my religion said there's a book that comes with the Bible. It's called Reasoning with the Scriptures or something like that. And so they teach you how to question other religions so that you make Jehovah's Witnesses right. But they didn't realize they were teaching me just how to question.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's very fascinating.
I was expecting that twist.
Right?
Yes. Plot
twist. The religion in the first place is the reason why I got curious. So I always have to give credit to that. I can never tell that story without giving credit to that book for absolutely changing the way that I think. period, because I learned how to think for myself. But as far as miracles go, I have a lot of miracles, and I as businesswomen, we're always taught to like niche down and you focus on one thing, but really, honestly, healing helps every area, and you don't know what area is really going to help in the end. I've had women come to me for relationship issues, and they end up having cancer disappear. They end up having cysts that can only be removed with surgery, absolutely disappear, like it's gone. It doesn't exist. It didn't shrink. It's gone.
It's gone.
I've had people who have depression and anxiety who've taken pills for 10 plus years. As soon as they get a healing with me, they're working with their doctor to get off of it because they know they don't need it anymore. So I've had like miracles upon miracles upon miracles. But one of my favorite ones was I was doing a course. And like I said, all my courses come with healing. Healing is the key. So I was like, I want to make millionaires from this course. I'm so excited about, bringing in the millionaires. So one lady 2 months after the course was like, so you said you wanted to create miracles. I am one now. And I was like, hey, that was so exciting to me, right? Because with the masculine energy, you have to work really hard to create something. And she showed me how easy it was. It was so easy. She set an intention, and her intention was, show me the fastest way to become a millionaire. So easy. So feminine. So easy. It's like, okay, teaching me how to create in a feminine way. Thank you so much. So that was a really cool one. I also had a woman who, she worked really hard. Again, masculine energy. She worked really, really hard. And she was living in the Bay Area, and you know how expensive the Bay Area is. So her, I think she was making less than $50,000 a year at the time, which is nothing in the Bay Area. I mean, it's hardly enough to live in, especially when you have when you have a child. So I remember I went to her house to do, like we used to do psychic reading parties. Like I would do them for her every now and then. And this time I actually asked her if I could give her a healing. And so I did. And then about 6 months to a year later, she messaged me and she goes, I have not done anything different this year other than that healing that I did with you. And she said 6 months after the healing, I was offered a job that was for $250,000. And she goes, I make money so easily that it's embarrassing.
Wow. Powerful.
I was like, what? Embarrassing. She was like, it's that easy. She's like, I don't do anything anymore for this money. And she was like, the only thing it can attribute to is that healing. And I said, well, what happened during the healing that you felt shift? And she said, my fear was gone. She's like, I was afraid to leave the security of my $50,000 a year job, and afraid that I'm not going to have any money if I venture out and do something different. And she's like, the fear was just gone. So I moved on.
Talk about a pattern shift.
Right. And then the job came to her.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
When you open up to receiving, you become a magnetic force and things come to you. You don't have to go chasing it, grasping for it. Yeah.
This is in relationship to relationships too. For those of you who are like, I really want to find my beloved, if you're like, oh, I got an XYZ and ZYX my way there, try just inviting this intention forward and orienting all of what you do toward that intention.
And here's one, just to kind of build on that, the one secret I would say to just setting an intention when it comes to your love life is that I feel like that's limiting. And I feel like it's limiting because I want to work with women who want it all. And when I say I want it all, I want the money, I want the house, I want the kids, I want the man, right? Or the woman, or whatever they want, but want it all. And so really when I'm working with people with their love lives, and I'm working with people to create an open heart, everything in their life start working out, including health. So it's not just about, hey, I just want this romance. It's like, what else do you want in your life? Why don't we make a list of everything that's not working and let's turn it right? Because the problem is that you can get into a great relationship and it can be beautiful, but if you're poor, it doesn't feel beautiful anymore, because now you're both struggling just to make ends meet to put food on the table. And then you're like, well, we can't have kids yet because we don't have, you see how it all flows. Like you said, it's all a relationship, 100% accurate. It's all a relationship. I have a relationship with money. I have a relationship with myself. I have a relationship with my partner. I have a relationship with my children. I have a relationship with my own energy. And so it all has to flow correctly for it all to work, or otherwise it just starts to decline, even if you do find the right relationship.
Well said. I love that you're like really doing a life review It's not just getting narrow, but it's getting broadened. You're broadening the viewpoint so that you can take a whole life, a holistic life inventory and go, what's the thread that we can
It's expanding the
heal up?
consciousness. And I remember where I really grasped that idea. I was in my 20s and I was listening to T. Harv Eker, which is all about money, because that's what I told you I was all about at the time, right? And he was actually saying, he said, you know, the difference between rich people and poor people. He said, rich people will say, I want both. And poor people will actually choose between one or the other. And he said, like, choosing between money and love is like choosing, do I want my right hand or my left hand? And I was like, you know how true that's actually true.
That's
like,
really
I want
good.
both of my hands. I'm not going to choose which one you cut off. So in a lot of ways, us just saying, well, I'd rather have money than love, or I'd rather have love than money. And mine was money rather than love, is an offhand, literally cutting off part of my life. It doesn't make sense. So we actually want to pull it all in at the same time.
I love that, because it's really not an either or, it's an and I think that that's a really uninvestigated question that we aren't trained to pose to ourselves. We really think we can only have one thing or the other thing. It all comes down to this choice. It's very dualistic versus really considering, what if it's not an either or? There's an and
simple.
here. Yeah,
it's really simple. It's like when you're wondering how you're going to pay your rent, how good is the sex? Mm-hmm. When I'm not worried about how I'm going to pay for the rent, how good is the sex?
Oh, so much better.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
It's the old conditioning again, that we are now much more well equipped to break those patterns, those old conditionings, the dualistic mindset. Do I need to choose this or do I need to choose that? I mean, according to my Buddhist teacher, that's the epitome of a sales. Like, do you want this diamond that has a few black spots in it? Or do you want this diamond that has a little bit of yellow tinge to it? It's like two bad choices is how people sell you on stuff. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I have to choose. But the millionaire mindset is like, neither. I don't want either of those. Like, there's always another choice. You just have to broaden, right? Open your mind to the other possibilities.
See, you guys speak truth, and I just start to feel like I'm melting and just like, yes, I'm home.
Yeah.
Welcome home, sister.
Thank you.
What's been sort of some of the challenges that you encounter in your work? What are some of the obstacles?
You know, it's interesting. I have this client. Don't name any names, but I have a client who, she actually asked me before we started working together, like, what do you think is going to be like an issue as far as me healing goes? And I said, well, you're really resistant. And that would have been like a key to me that I'm not going to work with you. I was like, but my guides just came in my ear and said the resistance isn't going to last very, very long. And so literally like session 2, I was like, I don't feel any resistance. She's like, neither do I. And I was like, you paid, because my guides were talking to me. And I was like, you paid me to prove me wrong. And she just started laughing. She goes, absolutely 100%. And she was like, now I don't feel that way.
I love that one. That gives me chills. That's
Totally.
so good. Yeah. The resistance that we as human beings can get stuck in can keep us playing small for an entire lifetime, for years and years on end, for an entire lifetime. We are here to have it all. Like, we are here to have the love, the sex, the money, the home, the family, all of it. That's why we came. That's why we're in these bodies that are created for pleasure to come through. And so again, now we have this opportunity to live up to that.
And you know, that whole idea that that we need to play it small is just an idea that we think we're going to be safe. But that's like locking the door and then having somebody break in and you realize maybe you're not as safe as you thought you were, you know? And so then you start looking at other safety measures. It's a lot like that when you realize that closing, and this is what happened for me, is when you realize that closing off your heart doesn't keep you as safe as you think it does. You get more brokenhearted, you have more issues, you have more problems with just people in general, the friends, clients, anybody, because you're closing yourself off. You literally will not let them in. And you just start realizing you're not safe. Like, that actually creates more not being safe than it does the safety. And then you start looking for other ways of being safe. And then you start realizing, well, creating community and having people that you can connect to and you can trust is more safe than keeping myself boxed up all by myself where I don't have anybody to turn to. So it's kind of like sometimes when you start realizing that you're not safe in what you thought to be your safety container is kind of a blessing in the end, because then you start looking outside of yourself for
That's really
ways to
well
be
said,
truthful.
because I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to protect my heart. I have to protect my heart. There's like this hypervigilance about protecting my heart and this, that, and the other thing. And then the next thing you know, you're in a prison. You've locked yourself in the prison of your heart, and you've got all these walls up and no one can get through under this illusion that I'll be safe, that I've got to put all these protection measures. And then you're in a cage.
Yeah.
You get yourself in your own prison. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all to protect you. The protections become blocks. Originally, I think when we have these, I need to protect myself in this way when we're a child, like that's going to work, right? That original wound. Yeah, it's going to work. But then we keep using that protection style. And pretty soon it's like, why am I not getting these things that I want in life? It's because it becomes this block. I mean, 99.9% of the time I get in with somebody, I'm like, well, why is that there? It's always to protect, always.
It is.
To keep safe. Yeah.
I have this story that I tell people. My mother, I remember, I don't know, I know why I remember the skirt, but she had this pink skirt, and it was a big, huge flowing skirt that goes all the way down to her ankles. And so I was like 2 or 3. And I remember people would come up to me and like bend down and be like, hi. And I would lift up her skirt and run up under and open her legs and scooch back up here and try to find my way back into the vagina. I want to go home.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I literally wrote an email. It hasn't went out yet, but I'm telling this story, and I'm like, how many of us are still doing that as full grown adults? I know I was.
Yeah.
I was.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, because of the fear, right? Because of that piece.
You're like, scary person, hide.
And I think
Totally.
if you haven't tested this yet, here's what is assured. As you test the fears and you encounter them, you realize that they're not quite as engulfing as they look. And that it's really just about crossing the threshold. That rope is just a rope, it's not a snake. And then you've built a new muscle around bravery and being courageous, and that becomes easier and easier, and fear becomes less of, you don't take it as seriously.
Yeah, it's true. And one thing that I actually tell my clients all the time is that a lot of people, first of all, we live in fear because we're taught as humans to fear the unknown, because that's always kept us safe. You don't go into a dark jungle without knowing what's in that jungle, right? And knowing how to defend yourself in that jungle. So that's basically in our DNA, is how to protect ourselves. And so we're always afraid of, what's on the other side. But one thing that you have to remember is that somebody had to venture into that jungle. Somebody had to be brave enough to figure out what the danger was and how to protect yourself. And that is the only way to ever really know, what is on the other side of the unknown, is actually to venture and be brave enough to do it. And it's one of those things where you just really have to follow your fears and be okay with that, because it's just a program that everything is scary if you don't know what's on the other side. And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. And I think the more we become accustomed to our vulnerability, and it gets rewarded with closer and closer relationships, and it gets rewarded with, like, you're seen, you're felt, you matter, you belong. When those messages come in, they're like rewards to our vulnerability, and vulnerability becomes easier to encounter. It becomes easier to embrace. And that's the place where we become the most lovable. Like, where we really start to see that these inside guts that we're worried are like, gross, no one's going to want to look at them, they're going to run away once they see it. When you start to realize, no, that's what's beautiful about me. I can really let this open up and be seen. I can really open up my heart and let it all shine, even the parts that feel still afraid.
Yeah.
And don't want to be rejected, and don't want to be left, and don't want to be betrayed. That's natural. We all don't want that.
Yeah.
We all have that in common.
But how many of us, raise of hands, how many of us have lived out a worse fear and we're like, yeah, I'm not even afraid of that anymore. Like, it wasn't that big.
It wasn't so bad. I'm living that right now.
Yeah.
You have this terror, and then all of a sudden we're like, what was I afraid of this whole time? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the end, it's all for you, right? Everything happens for you, not to you. And so if you can keep that perspective and trust, like that's the other side of vulnerability, is being able to trust that that when you go into those depths and those shadows and the dark sides and the unknown, that there's medicine there for you. Just trust that it will come.
I love that. The medicine. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, what else, Adrian? What else do you want our audience to know about your work and your message?
I love the medicine. I love what you guys say. Like I want to hang on these words, the medicine. I was really stuck on my career at some point, and I started going into meditation and contacting my totem animals. And in one of my meditations, when I was really trying to figure out this whole psychic thing, I didn't want to do it anymore. I got bit by the snake. And I was like, why would you do that? I felt like a victim. And the snake was like, the poison is the antidote, it's the medicine. And I didn't understand what that meant until I became a healer. Then I was like, oh, that whole, it happens for you, not to you. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful example of how I felt like a victim. And then all of a sudden I realized the power in being able to just be in a space and then just change and shift so easily. And I fought it for like a year and a half, and then all of a sudden it was like this easy transition.
Is there any words of wisdom or any like tips or tools? You're saying meditation is one, but is there anything that you could offer our listeners who, they're like, that sounds nice to just trust that in the shadows and the darkness, there's medicine, but I don't trust that. And I don't want to spiritually bypass and go over that. Like, how can I learn to trust?
Trusting is a process. You don't just wake up and trust one day. I have people that come to me and they're just like, I met this guy and I trust him so much. I think he's the one. And I'm like, but has he earned your trust? Like, has he earned your trust? Trust is a process. Trust is where somebody, builds you up and they continue to do that and you do the same for them. And you're like, okay, this is somebody I can fall back on. It's more along the lines of, you don't have to trust right now. It's the process of being willing to trust and getting to know people. That's where the openness comes from, is being open to get to know people, to see if you can trust them or not, and being okay if you can't, and being smart enough just to walk away and then find the ones that you can. And I think that's where people really get stuck, especially when it comes to relationships, is that they just feel like, well, I feel good inside now that I met this person. Day one, there's like this euphoria. It's like you're on a drug and they're on this high, and they think that's it. That's it.
I never trust those where they're like, we've been together for a month. He's the one we're getting. I'm like, okay, God bless. I'll be here when you need me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We all have been through this, which I love. You know what I mean? So people can identify with what I'm saying at 100%, that, trust really is something that should be earned, and it's something that you should work towards. And the same thing with the universe. There's been so many people who came to me and they felt like they were, they knew, how you go in and you're just like, I know it, but I've never experienced it. You have to experience to know. So they felt like, well, I should just trust the universe. And I'm like, why? Why don't you tell the universe, I'd like to see a loving relationship out there in the open so that I can mirror that and let the universe show you that it's willing to do what you've asked it to, especially within reason. And to me, that's within reason, because it's not uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable. You can ask for something that's so easy to create when it's not uncomfortable. So you ask for that. And as you start to realize the universe will actually listen to you, start to ask for the things that make you uncomfortable, because that's when you grow. And so to me, I actually feel like the universe is a relationship too. And you have to learn how to trust the relationship with the universe. And you have to learn to trust the universe itself by asking things of it.
Well said.
Yeah.
Love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. What other examples do you have for people to test the universe, to question the universe? What are some other little, starting places for that?
The first one I always say is that example. You always have to ask for the example so that you know what it looks like.
Okay.
Most people have, I have a lot of people who come to me and they're like, nobody loves me. And then I'm just like, what? And they're like, my family is against me. My partners have been against me. Everybody's been against me. And I'm like, okay, so that's what you pay attention to, because that's what hurts the most. And that's what you're trying to protect yourself from. But how many people have actually been for you, supported you, and loved you, and you're just not recognizing it? And it's almost instant. Somebody would be like, you know what? my grandmother, or you know what, my ex-boyfriend, or you know what, the stranger across the street. It was like, go for it. And you start to realize that you're just kind of shutting yourself off from certain things. So in that regards, my tip is always to ask yourself, when you have this thing that you always say to yourself is, I don't get what I want. Love doesn't work out for me, blah, 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 blah. The stories we tell ourselves, actually ask yourself, when has it?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, your perception changes almost instantly when you change what you're asking of the universe to show you in the first place.
Yeah.
And then that changes your like cellular frequency and vibration, right? Your whole body is buzzing at a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes you out of being a victim.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Doesn't it? Makes you feel so empowered.
What change can really come from a state of victimness? You know, you need to really question that storyline and go, how is that serving you? You know,
it's true.
You want to live over there, but you've got to get out of, again, the prison, you know, that you're believing in.
Yeah.
And then when you can, like, I love that you're looking for proof. You know, how can I prove that the story I'm believing is not true? There's proof. You can find it if you look for it, just like you can find the negativity if you look for it. Mm-hmm. And we have a negativity bias. Our brain is naturally wired for that. And so we have to consciously choose to notice that that's going to be an instinct and then do a redirection. You know, reroute GPS. You made
different way, please.
Make a U-turn.
Don't go that way again.
Yeah, and like start to create like the pattern interrupt bells. Ding, ding, ding. Pay attention. This is not the path I want to follow. You know, I love that. I want to go in this direction where the heart is like beating and open.
And another thing you said, Adrian, that I want to highlight is to ask for support, not only like external support, like with you, Adrian, or merely or somebody, but also from your guides. Really just ask for support from a higher power, from your guides, because they're always right there.
Yeah, that's where I've seen a lot of miracles happen, is when people actually get angry at God or angry at the universe, angry at their guides. Like, why are you allowing this to happen to me? It is time for change. You need to help me change this thing. And all of a sudden, it's like they find the thing that they were looking for them, especially in health issues. People who just couldn't get rid of a health issue will find the right healer, they find the right doctor, they find the right supplement. And it's like, because they finally allowed, and allowing doesn't always look pretty. Surrender does not always look pretty. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom and get so angry that you are not willing to accept this anymore. And then you use that energy to make that shift, and the universe will listen to it. It will respond to it. And then you can go up from there.
So powerful. So good. So I'm excited. I can't wait to play with your free gift. This is going to be really just enlightening and just, you know, inspiring. I love all this kind of energy. Let's move the patterns and shift and open up to what we're capable of becoming. So tell us more about your gift that you're offering us.
So my free gift is, it's a download, which is a webinar that I did a while back, and the energy works just the same as if it were live or if we were in person. There's no space or time that can make this energy stop. So when you're listening to it, not only will you get the lessons that I'm teaching at the time, but when I stop and actually do the energy work, you'll actually start to feel the blocks remove. And it's just really incredible to just feel that energy. Some people are super, super sensitive to the energy. I had an interesting story where I think it was that webinar specifically, where I had one of my clients was telling me that every time she went to one of my webinars and stuff, I might've mentioned it in there, that she would throw up. She was actually vomiting every single time. And I was like, well, do you want to stop going? She goes, no, because I know I need that purge. And I guess she had a heart condition, and she went to the doctor to get it checked out. And they were like, no, you don't have anything wrong with your heart.
What? Oh yeah, my God. Miracle story.
Because that was recent. This is like in the last 8 months or so. So I was like, what, really? And then, so there was one of my speakers for, you know, I'm the host of Making Miracles Happen. And so one of my speakers was there and listening. And she was like, I heard you talk about how people will like get sick and stuff. And she said, I listened to one of your free gifts. She said right after the energy was over, she's like, I don't throw up. And she goes, I went to the toilet and puked. And she was like, something changed in me. So sometimes the energy is like, people are really sensitive. It's really powerful for them. And other people are like, I don't feel anything. And then they start having nightmares. It's usually nightmares for about 3 days when something really big is clearing. And then they know something's healed. They can't explain it. They know something's different. Their life is different. And then other people don't feel anything, but their life changes. They start making more money. They get a raise when they go to work tomorrow. They find their soulmate. I mean, there's so many different things that happen. Remember, because we want to create it all. So it's not just one thing people are creating, but whatever needs to heal is what they have happened within the synergy or frequency. So that's a gift.
That's a huge gift.
Cannot wait for that gift.
Oh my gosh.
I'm doing it tonight.
I'm doing it tonight. I know. Me too. I'm doing it tonight. I don't know where my blocks are right this minute, but I know I got them, and I'm going to
Let's get rid of them.
Let's get rid of them. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Adrian.
What a lovely, generous.
So generous.
Helpful gift. We can all use this.
Yes.
Great.
You're very welcome.
Oh, such a pleasure. Such an honor to sit with you in your presence, to hear from you, to learn about you, and to really share your expertise and your wisdom with all of our viewers. So thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with me. I appreciate that. I love this. This is fun.
This is great. Well, love, 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 love.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Okay, welcome Sex Reimagined and Adrien Blackwell.
She was so fun to hang out with. She was just such a frequency raiser, like vibration. Up and away. Yeah, I was delighted. Yeah, it was great.
She was a delight, wasn't she?
She's been doing her craft and her practice and her work for a long time. It's taken on so many different avenues and paths, and you just tell like the joy she brings to it and the wholeness that she sits in now around every aspect of what she does, which is healing, right? She calls herself a celebrity healer, but basically she works with anyone, and she just does this incredible, I don't even know what would we even call
it's
her?
Like a transmutation of our fear into fearlessness. It's like she takes blocks and she obliterates them.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way. We didn't quite get clear on like what the exact method is, but I think it's a meditative trance state is my guess. I'm about to book a session with her because I know. Let's just move this shit on along. All right? I don't even know what they are. I don't need to know what they are. I just want to just get them out of the way and let's get flow underway. She
started when she first started. She was when she very first began, she was doing these readings, like tarot readings, and she would do them around relationship, and she was always so uninvested and uninterested because she herself was not that interested in relationships. She was fully focused on her career and making the money and bringing her abundance to a new level. So when she was getting into the relationship aspect early on in her career, and everyone wanted to know that piece, they might come for like, tell me about the money, but then they'd be like, well, I really want to know about the relationship. How's this going to transpire? And she would give them those insights, but she was always so uninvested. It was kind of boring for her. Yeah. And then once she shifted over into like, wow, love and intimacy and having partnership and someone I can trust and be vulnerable with, and sexuality, then she got really excited about sharing that with her clients.
And her work completely shifted gears. She's no longer interested in being a psychic to the stars. It's more now, let's heal these generational blocks. Let's heal the obstacles that have got you, stuck from really doing everything you're meant to do in the world. I love it.
And not just on a, intimacy, relationship, sexual level, but every single sector of life, your family, your health, your home, your money, your what else sector, every sector.
I think that was one of the things that really blew me away more than anything, because I tend to parse things out and tackle sort of like one obstacle at a time. And so for her to just get her arms around all of it was really expansive and really sort of opened my own consciousness and narrowed thinking around dealing with life's obstacles. That there's a way to just blow it all up to smithereens all at once. My mind is still trying to grapple with that.
Yeah, exactly. It seems to me as a healer myself, it's like, especially coming from the Chinese medicine realm, we want to get right to the root. Someone might come to us with all of these symptoms, I get headaches and I get this blurry vision and my heart palpitations and all of these symptoms, which are really just branches of a tree, which has a root, and so that's kind of how I see her healing work as well. It's like, let's get to the root. Let's pull that one root out, and then all those symptoms are going to go away.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's so great. So yeah, I'm curious. I kind of want to go take it on a test drive and go, man, there's a few hurdles I could get over. I'd like to have a little more balance. I'd like to like not be so all in or all out. I want my energy to feel a little bit more even, less topsy turvy.
Yeah. Well, that saves your energy too.
Yeah.
That's the balance.
It's
the
more
Tao.
reliable, which I
Yeah.
would like to be able to lean into more.
Yeah, absolutely. And she shared with us a pretty profound, I can't remember the story exactly, but a pretty profound breakthrough one of her clients had just from the free gift that she's offered us. So definitely be sure to grab that, because she said inside of everything she does,
Oh,
she's
right, because of the
clearing
purging.
blocks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's in her free gift is a meditation and a process, and for some people they can have a real nauseous reaction to the experience because the body actually needs to purge that which is no longer serving you. And in lots of different shamanic traditions, that is not an uncommon phenomenon. Certainly in the tantric spaces, I've been a part of many healings where we call it psychic vomiting, where someone is going through the process of like really, it usually has to do with opening up their voice and clearing the blocks from their ability to speak the truth. Or to take ownership or to take responsibility for something. And so it's really an interesting process to watch someone go through this like gagging, burping thing. We call it apana. And to hear her work in similar fashion, even like plant medicine, most plant medicine makes people puke and purge. It's because you're getting rid of the toxins. And so it wasn't a huge stretch in my imagination and in my experience to hear that people would have that reaction, but I'm sure it's kind of a shock to some of our audience members, and maybe that is not something you would want. I mean, no one really wants to puke, but like it sounds like some people had some really amazing miraculous healings. I mean, from physical healings, getting rid of cancer, there's nothing beyond the realm of possibility, no matter how straight you think you are.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the aspects or sides of her healing modalities is shamanic work. So it makes sense that deeper purge would have to take place. I mean, if something's been rooted deep inside of you, whether it's a belief system or a physical ailment or anything, if it's been inside of you for a long time, when you pull those roots up and you begin to extract that, it's going to cause as an upward flow of energy, right? So the energy comes up and out. So this purging that she spoke of that her clients were having just by listening or just by having sessions with her was really telling of how powerful the work is. And then the next day, like all that stuff that had been there a whole entire lifetime was gone, just completely gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're facing any illness, physical illness, I think it's worth investigating some of this more psychic phenomenon, shamanic work, because why not? Try everything you can to get better. And if something like this can work and create a miracle, you owe it to yourself to give it a try and stay open-minded.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are so many different avenues and paths to healing. And we often, we grow up with the Western medical world, and they don't bring in the fact that your psychology and your mindset and the beliefs that you grew up believing play a role in your physical ailments. And I believe nothing could be further from the truth. And the work that I do, when the sexual work that I do with clients, where I'm getting in, it's like, it's always this deep, old, belief pattern, right? That's why they have the pain under their left rib cage that they can't get rid of, or that's why they've never had enjoyable sex and it's always been painful because of some really old psychological pattern.
Now, I know that, okay, here's where my curiosity was starting to want to take the whole interview in another direction, but it would have been like a little off topic, so I didn't. But when she started to talk about the whole Jehovah Witness,
oh, that was
part
interesting.
of her history, like I grew up in a born again Christian Pentecostal church. The newspapers called it a cult. All of our closest friends left the church at the same time. I was 10 years old. It's a big story in my life. So there has been this religious conditioning and recovery that I personally have personal experience with from cults and whatnot. And I really and I saw this documentary recently about the Jehovah's Witness and all their the cult aspect of it. It was really fascinating. So I kind of wanted to dish on okay, so tell me I want to get this slow down on how crazy the Jehovah's Witnesses are. And maybe they're not crazy. I just wanted her opinion, but they seem pretty damn crazy.
Yeah. I mean, well, what was beautiful about her experience coming from that religious background is that she took the pearl, right? She took the sand and she turned it into a pearl. She took the grain of sand of whatever, she took the piece and she turned it into something beautiful, which was questioning. That's what one of the big pieces of that religious order is, to be in questioning. Question this, question that, so that you can make your own surmisation of what's true. And so for her, she just took that and ran with it, and began to question everything. And even probably her work in Reiki, her work in shamanism, her work in Qigong, medical Qigong. I'm sure she took that all along the way and questioned until she was able to surmise her own truth around it, which is why she's such a powerful and phenomenal healer, because she's coming from pure truth. I could really feel that in her.
Yeah, she's quite the magical being. And have you noticed so far, being able to connect with these amazing people in these sexpert interviews, just how gorgeous everybody is?
Yeah, everyone shines so beautifully.
Everyone, from Sherry to Amneet to Devi to Honeybee. I mean, I was just looking at Adrian and just she's got this most beautiful teeth I think I've ever seen.
Well done, orthodontist.
Oh my gosh, she's just radiant. The sparkle in her smile meets the sparkle in her eyes, and I was quite taken with her.
Yeah, it was interesting when we hopped on the interview right before Adrian got on with us. Mm-hmm. Leah and I were both like, I'm tired.
I know.
Another interview.
I'm not sure.
Here we go again.
What's our focus again?
What are we even talking about here? We were pretty
we're
much
a little lost in the beginning.
Yeah, and by the end we were just so uplifted and energized.
Yeah, she just came out
want to work with her.
Yeah, she's so ready to go. She made our job so easy.
It was great.
So connected. Yeah. So thank you, Adrian. You're a rock star.
Yeah. Let us know what you got from the interview. Share it with us over on the Instagram account, Sex Reimagined.
Yeah. We'll see you there. Love, love, love.
Thanks for tuning in. If the hosts seem to know what they were talking about, that's because they do. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.